In January 2024, a ship longer than the Eiffel Tower is tall departed from Miami, carrying nearly 10,000 people. At first glance, it looked like the ultimate floating vacation resort, packed with water parks, luxury suites, infinity pools, and endless entertainment. But beneath the surface lies one of the most advanced engineering projects ever created. This is the Icon of the Seas, the largest cruise ship ever built, costing over $2 billion and weighing more than 248,000 gross tons. This floating city operates with its own power plant, water supply, hospital, waste treatment facilities, and thousands of crew members working around the clock. While guests enjoy tropical sunsets and world-class dining, an invisible network of technology keeps everything running smoothly. One of the ship's most remarkable engineering achievements stands right in the middle of the Royal Promenade. Known as the Pearl, this massive steel sphere is far more than a beautiful art installation. Every day, thousands of passengers walk past it without realizing it supports the weight of multiple decks above. For decades, Royal Caribbean's promenades felt enclosed and dark because huge structural beams blocked natural light. Designers wanted floor-to-ceiling ocean views, but removing those beams would compromise the entire structure. Their solution was revolutionary. They concentrated enormous structural loads into a single steel sphere and transformed it into a kinetic sculpture. The result was a stunning centerpiece that supports several decks while flooding the promenade with natural light. One structure solved two major problems at once, but supporting the ship was only the beginning. Managing thousands of passengers is an even greater challenge. Without proper planning, crowds would overwhelm restaurants, pools, and public spaces. To prevent this, the ship was divided into 8 distinct neighborhoods, each designed to feel like its own destination. Chill Island features multiple pools and a lively swim-up bar. Thrill Island houses the largest water park ever built at sea, complete with towering slides and a surf simulator. Surfside was created specifically for families, offering splash zones, playgrounds, arcades, and kid-friendly dining options. The Hideaway caters to adults with an infinity pool suspended above the ocean, private lounges, and a beach club atmosphere. By spreading attractions throughout the ship, passengers naturally separate into smaller groups, creating the illusion of a much less crowded environment despite carrying more people than some small towns. This design strategy works so effectively that many guests report the ship feels surprisingly spacious even during fully booked sailings. The upper decks presented another challenge. Large open-air areas were too windy for restaurants and too exposed for relaxation. Rather than waste valuable space, engineers transformed these decks into an adrenaline-filled attraction zone. The result was Category 6, the largest water park at sea. Covering over 17,000 square feet, it includes 6 massive slides, among them the tallest drop slide ever installed on a cruise ship. One slide begins with passengers standing on a trapdoor platform before the floor suddenly disappears beneath them. These attractions not only provide unforgettable experiences, but also keep thousands of guests occupied in one area, reducing congestion throughout the rest of the ship. Yet every slide, elevator, restaurant, and air conditioning unit requires enormous amounts of electricity. Deep below the guest decks sits the true heart of the vessel, a massive power plant hidden inside the hull. 6 giant engines generate the energy required to operate what is essentially a floating city. Together, they produce enough power to rival that of a small town, while the ship travels through the Caribbean at more than 22 knots. 3 of these engines weigh over 240 tons each and stretch nearly 40 feet long. The remaining engines, though slightly smaller, are still among the largest marine engines in operation. Instead of traditional marine fuel, they run primarily on liquefied natural gas, or LNG. By cooling natural gas to approximately minus 260 degrees Fahrenheit, it becomes a liquid that occupies only a fraction of its original volume. Massive cryogenic tanks store this fuel deep within the ship, protected by heavy insulation that keeps it cold despite tropical temperatures outside. These tanks were so large that they had to be built in Germany and transported across the Baltic Sea before being installed during construction. LNG burns significantly cleaner than conventional marine fuels, reducing sulfur emissions almost entirely while lowering overall environmental impact. However, the engineers didn't stop there. Most ships waste enormous amounts of heat generated by their engines, releasing it into the ocean or atmosphere. Icon of the Seas captures that energy and puts it to work. Recovered heat helps produce fresh drinking water, warms swimming pools, powers laundry operations, and even assists in food preparation throughout the ship. A single energy source performs multiple tasks simultaneously, dramatically improving efficiency. By turning what would normally be waste into a valuable resource, the vessel demonstrates how modern engineering can maximize every ounce of available energy. And as impressive as these power systems are, they are only the beginning of the hidden technologies that make the world's largest cruise ship possible. Generating electricity is only half the challenge aboard Icon of the Seas. Managing resources efficiently is what truly separates this vessel from every cruise ship that came before it. One of the most surprising examples is hidden within the ship's waste management system. Every day, thousands of passengers generate enormous amounts of food waste, leftovers, and organic garbage. On most ships, this waste would simply be processed and discarded. But Icon takes a completely different approach. Using a groundbreaking technology called microwave-assisted pyrolysis, food waste is heated inside a sealed oxygen-free chamber until it breaks down into gas. That gas is then fed back into the ship's power system and converted into usable energy. It is essentially a garbage-powered generator, the first of its kind, installed on a cruise ship. Even the remaining material isn't wasted. The leftover solids are converted into pellets that can later be used as agricultural fertilizer. What was once considered trash becomes a valuable energy source, helping reduce both waste and fuel consumption. All of these systems feed into a single electrical network that powers the entire vessel. Balancing that network is a full-time responsibility. Deep inside the hull, engineers monitor power consumption around the clock. Every decision involves a trade-off. More electricity directed to propulsion means less available for air conditioning. More power for passenger comfort can affect efficiency and performance. Thousands of variables must be adjusted continuously, all without passengers ever noticing. Once that electricity is generated, much of it is sent directly to one of the ship's most remarkable technologies, its propulsion system. Unlike traditional ships, Icon of the Seas doesn't rely on conventional propeller shafts and rudders. Instead, it uses 3 enormous ABB Azipod propulsion units mounted beneath the stern. Each pod contains a powerful electric motor directly connected to a propeller, eliminating the need for long drive shafts and complicated gearboxes. Together, these units generate around 60 megawatts of propulsion power. What makes them truly extraordinary is their ability to rotate a full 360 degrees. By simply turning the pods, the captain can direct thrust in any direction. Combined with 5 powerful bow thrusters at the front of the vessel, the ship can move sideways, rotate within its own length, and maneuver with astonishing precision. Despite being nearly 1,200 feet long and weighing over 250,000 tons, Icon can dock with the agility of a much smaller vessel. Yet moving the ship is only one challenge. Keeping it stable is another. At first glance, it seems impossible that something made almost entirely of steel could float. The answer lies in buoyancy. Rather than being a solid block of metal, the ship contains thousands of sealed compartments filled primarily with air. The hull displaces an enormous volume of water, creating an upward force that supports the vessel's massive weight. But floating alone isn't enough. A ship carrying thousands of people must remain stable under constantly changing conditions. Every wave, every gust of wind, and even the movement of passengers affects the vessel's balance. Imagine thousands of guests gathering on one side of the ship to watch a sunset. That shift in weight can alter the center of gravity significantly. To counteract this, Icon uses an advanced ballast system, consisting of numerous tanks distributed throughout the hull. Powerful pumps automatically transfer thousands of tons of seawater between tanks, constantly rebalancing the vessel before passengers notice any movement. The system reacts to changing fuel levels, passenger distribution, water consumption, and even varying pool levels. For larger disturbances such as ocean swells and rough seas, the ship deploys massive stabilizer fins beneath the waterline. These underwater wings continuously adjust their angle using real-time gyroscopic data, generating lift that opposes the ship's rolling motion. The result is an incredibly smooth ride that allows passengers on the upper decks to barely notice waves that would have caused severe motion on older vessels. Even the shape of the hull contributes to stability and efficiency. Engineers developed a unique parabolic bow design that reduces drag, improves fuel economy, and softens impacts against incoming waves. Every part of the ship performs multiple functions simultaneously. But no matter how advanced the propulsion and stability systems are, none of it matters without one essential resource: fresh water. With nearly 10,000 people on board, supplying water becomes a challenge on a scale few cities ever face. Hidden deep within the ship are massive desalination plants that transform seawater into drinking water using advanced reverse osmosis technology. Every shower, swimming pool, restaurant kitchen, laundry facility, and drinking fountain depends on these systems operating flawlessly. Day and night, they produce thousands of gallons of fresh water, making them one of the hardest working systems on the vessel. Backup reserves are always maintained in case of emergencies, because running out of fresh water in the middle of the ocean is simply not an option. Water keeps passengers alive, but food keeps them satisfied. Feeding thousands of guests requires an operation that resembles a military logistics network more than a cruise vacation. More than 60,000 meals are prepared every single day across over 40 restaurants, cafes, and bars. During turnaround days, when one group of passengers leaves and another arrives, crews have only a few hours to unload and reload enormous quantities of produce, meat, seafood, dairy products, and dry goods. Behind the scenes runs a hidden corridor known as I-95, a service highway stretching almost the entire length of the ship. This network connects kitchens, storage areas, laundry facilities, crew quarters, and operational centers. While passengers enjoy luxury lounges and shopping areas just a few feet away, crews move supplies through these corridors with military-like precision. Most guests never even realize this hidden city exists behind the walls. Yet, without it, the world's largest cruise ship simply could not function. And in the next part, we'll explore the ship's hospital, emergency systems, waste treatment technology, billion-dollar business model, and the incredible construction process that turned a digital design into the largest cruise ship ever built. While passengers enjoy luxury suites, endless entertainment, and breathtaking ocean views, another massive operation is taking place completely out of sight. Every day, nearly 10,000 people generate enormous amounts of wastewater, sewage, and solid waste. Managing that volume in the middle of the ocean requires systems more advanced than those found in many cities. Icon of the Seas processes. Every drop of wastewater through highly sophisticated treatment facilities built directly into the ship. Sewage, grey water from showers, sinks, and laundry facilities all pass through multiple stages of filtration and purification. The treated water that emerges is so clean, it often exceeds many environmental standards found on land. In sensitive marine zones and protected coral reef areas, regulations become even stricter. During these periods, absolutely nothing is discharged overboard, forcing the ship to store and manage everything internally until disposal is permitted. But environmental protection is only one part of the equation. Passenger safety is equally critical. 3 days from the nearest port, there is no nearby hospital, no local fire department, and no emergency services that can arrive within minutes. For that reason, Icon carries its own fully equipped medical center capable of handling serious emergencies. Hidden below the passenger decks is a facility that includes intensive care beds, advanced diagnostic equipment, X-ray systems, pharmacies, and even operating rooms designed for emergency surgical procedures. Doctors and nurses on board are trained to respond to everything from broken bones and allergic reactions to cardiac emergencies and infectious disease outbreaks. In many situations, the ship's medical staff must stabilize patients for hours or even days before evacuation becomes possible. Yet one threat concerns engineers more than almost anything else: fire. In the middle of the ocean, even a small fire can become catastrophic if not controlled immediately. To combat this risk, the ship is divided into multiple fire zones, separated by massive steel bulkheads and fire-resistant doors. The moment sensors detect heat or smoke, these barriers automatically seal affected areas to prevent flames from spreading. Specialized firefighting teams are stationed on board and train continuously for emergency situations. Every crew member knows exactly what role they must perform during a crisis. If the unimaginable ever occurs, the vessel carries enough lifeboats, life rafts, and evacuation systems to remove every passenger and crew member within a matter of minutes. Most guests will never see these safety systems, but they represent one of the largest investments in the ship's entire design. Of course, building a floating city costing more than $2 billion only makes sense if it can generate enormous revenue. And this is where the business side of Icon of the Seas becomes just as fascinating as the engineering. Royal Caribbean earns money from two primary sources. The first is ticket sales, while the second comes from onboard spending. Every drink package, specialty restaurant, excursion, spa treatment, casino visit, internet package, and souvenir purchase contributes to the ship's profitability. With more than 5,600 passengers on board during a typical voyage and new guests arriving every week, the numbers become staggering. The ship's 8-neighborhood layout isn't just designed to improve passenger flow. It's also designed to maximize convenience and spending opportunities. Wherever guests go, restaurants, bars, attractions, and premium experiences are always within reach. Instead of searching for something to do, passengers constantly find themselves surrounded by options. At the same time, operating costs don't increase proportionally with size. Although Icon is dramatically larger than many earlier cruise ships, it doesn't require twice as many crew members or twice the operating expenses. Its advanced LNG engines, waste heat recovery systems, energy-efficient technologies, and enormous passenger capacity create economies of scale that significantly improve profitability. This combination of engineering efficiency and revenue generation explains why Royal Caribbean immediately committed to building multiple additional Icon-class vessels. The success of the concept was apparent long before the first voyage even began. But perhaps the most incredible story is how the ship itself was built. Construction took place at the Maja Turku shipyard in Finland and required approximately 900 days of non-stop work. More than 200 giant prefabricated steel blocks were manufactured separately before being assembled like pieces of a gigantic puzzle. Many sections arrived with plumbing, electrical wiring, ventilation systems, and even interior furnishings already installed. Before a single piece of steel was welded together, engineers created a complete digital twin of the ship. Every pipe, cable, corridor, structural beam, and mechanical system existed first inside a computer model. Laser-guided positioning systems ensured every block was installed with incredible accuracy, often within tolerances smaller than the width of a pencil lead. Suppliers from dozens of countries contributed components that eventually came together inside a single shipyard. Then, in December 2022, the dry dock was flooded and the unfinished vessel touched water for the very first time. Remarkably, it floated exactly as engineers predicted, because it had already been tested thousands of times in virtual simulations. What emerged was far more than a cruise ship. It became a floating city, where a giant steel sculpture supports entire decks, where engine exhaust heats swimming pools, where food waste becomes electricity, where advanced medical facilities travel across oceans, and where thousands of people can live comfortably for days without ever seeing the extraordinary systems working beneath their feet. That may be the greatest achievement of all. The best engineering is often invisible. Guests remember the water slides, the sunsets, the restaurants, and the unforgettable experiences. They rarely think about the ballast tanks, constantly adjusting below them, the desalination plants producing fresh water, or the massive electric motors silently pushing a 250,000-ton vessel through the sea. And that is exactly what the engineers intended. Every hidden system works together so seamlessly that passengers never need to think about them. They simply enjoy the journey aboard the largest and most technologically advanced cruise ship ever built, the icon of the seas.